Welcome back. Now we're turning our attention to the ongoing homelessness crisis, and the numbers show King County has seen the homeless population grow by at least 26% since 2022.
So for those vying to make change in Seattle, we asked them, is it time to abandon the King County Regional Homelessness Authority?
No, it's not time to abandon it. And housing is the solution to homelessness. We can solve homelessness. Number one, we have to own that. My approach is radically different from my opponents. That the way to end homelessness is to get permanent supportive housing, the person into permanent supportive housing. They need wraparound services. Just sticking them in a tent or a tiny home is not the answer. That's like putting someone in an emergency room and not the hospital. If you look at the county, first of all, let's recognize this is a national problem. Homelessness in our country went up 18%, close to 800 million. I'm sorry, I don't want to misstate that. Oh, she's giving me time. Let me just stop by saying this. The answer will be getting regional support, resources, land, regional support, and that's what I'm doing right now. To sit back and say Seattle's needs to solve it on its own, that is not the answer.
That's a great question. And you know, one of the reasons why I got into this race is being so disappointed in how the current mayor's administration has handled the homelessness crisis, right? As you mentioned, we have far more people sleeping unsheltered on our streets today than we did 4 years ago. And we have actually lost shelter capacity in Seattle every single year the current mayor has been in office. So we have like 2 homeless people on the street for every 1 shelter bed, and our shelter network is 95% full on any given night. So if you go outside and you wonder why there are people camping in the park, why there are people sleeping in the doorway of a small business, it's because there's nowhere for them to go. So we need a strong emphasis on opening more emergency housing and shelter, getting people inside with the support, with the treatment, with the case management that they need to be successful there. Now, the King County Regional Homelessness Authority was set up some years ago to pioneer a regional solution to this problem, and we absolutely do need a regional solution. That agency has been very troubled, and that's partly from poor leadership from the mayor's office, because the mayor, sits on the governing board, has a very big stake in how that agency is governed. At this point, the answer for me is I don't know, and I think we need to try to make that agency work.
So beyond figuring out how to pay for these solutions to the ongoing crisis is figuring out how to use the resources being paid for now.
So we push the candidates on a critical point. How do you solve homelessness for those who refuse services?
And those who can't make clear decisions because of mental illness or addictions.
People who are have substance use disorder, addicted to drugs, right, usually are engaged in illegal activity of one sort or another, right? When there is an arrest, there is an opportunity there. Instead of throwing someone in jail and then they're back out and no one is helped, right? There's an opportunity for diversion. Instead of booking and going through that court process, here's the other path, right? And that involves treatment, services, case management. We have this resource here, we need to utilize it. So I think we can do better with the resources that we have.
So where my opponent and I would agree is that I believe most people can be redeemed and can be optimized, could be treated and live a productive life. I believe that. But there are some that will fall through the cracks, and perhaps they will refuse service. And in those situations, if they are a threat to other people, if they're using drugs or there's mental illness, then we have to take other measures. So we try to always lead with empathy, but I'm not afraid to arrest people that are harming others. And I don't mince words there. My charter responsibility to make sure that my kids are safe, your kids are safe, families are safe, elders are safe, kids are safe.
It is time to talk money. A new study shows us just how much money you need to make to live in the city of Seattle comfortably.
This is sobering. Take a look at these numbers. A single adult needs to make a salary of $128,000. For a family, those numbers go up to nearly $330,000.
No, here's the clincher. Census data tells us the median household income in Seattle right now is less than both of those numbers at $120,000 a year.
So we asked, what are you prioritizing to make this city of Seattle more affordable?
I'm personally very familiar with these numbers as a someone with a daughter, a 3-person household that's definitely not at those numbers. So, the housing crisis is a really big part of the affordability crisis, right? The cost of housing, the cost of rent, and let alone like trying to buy a home in this city. And so one of my big focuses is tackling the housing crisis. There's not one answer to that. We need to do a range of things. Part of this is making sure that the private market can build lots more housing around the city, right? Part of the reason why housing is so expensive is we've had this population boom over the last 10, 20 years, and we haven't had our housing supply increase to match. So we need to make sure that building can take place. Social housing, Seattle voters have twice said overwhelmingly that they want the city to develop, to build permanently affordable, publicly owned, mixed income housing. So I'm committed to making that project work. So that's a couple of the things that we need to do to address the housing crisis. Childcare is another huge issue, again, personal for me as a mother of a 2-year-old. As mayor, I will convene a blue ribbon commission of childcare experts so that we can create a roadmap for solving our childcare crisis.
So there's 2 things that's occurring here. Number one is income needs to go up, right? So we need to make sure that, the fact is we're a wealthy city, and even these port and maritime and industry jobs who are looking for employees, they pay well. The high tech, the biotech, the software developers, those pay well. So if you look at what we put on the ballot in terms of having the best Seattle public school system we can possibly have, from pre-K to child care, all the way up to 2 years free college if you graduate, that is a design, and I could go into depth on that, that is a design to make sure that we are optimizing the future of our kids, number one. Number two, everything the city can control to drive down the price of a house, for example, we will do. That's why we started our permit and customer trust initiative to drive down the cost of construction. You look at these projects around the city that we're doing right now, the Horcher project at the University Village, we cut down 2 years on the permit time. So we'll do everything we can to drive down the costs in the city.
So our candidates took 2 different approaches to this question. Harrell zeroed in on the need for affordable housing with a $350 million investment built into his proposed 2026 budget.
Plus an additional $11.5 million in rental assistance, geared toward preventing evictions.
Meanwhile, Katie Wilson focused her response around the critical need for affordable childcare in the city, so we pushed for her to explain, where is that money coming from? You've been accused of having a plan without a price. We've heard that. How do you pay for all this?
So childcare, there's a couple of parts of it. So one, it requires a lot of money, right? And that's the subsidy. And that's where I think we need to work at the state level. We also do need to look at, can we raise some more money here locally so that we can do more in the city? But part of it too is thinking creatively, right? Because it's not just about subsidy, it's also about supply. Like, it's really hard to find childcare. And so I think the city can do a lot more to locate spaces where we can do childcare and maybe work with early learning programs like at the University of Washington or at other universities, find ways that we can somehow facilitate low-interest loans for people who want to start childcare facilities, right? There's creative ways that we can increase the supply of childcare in a way that will also help to bring the cost down.
How realistic do you think it is that you would be able to get state help on a big project like childcare?
So I think this is going to be an evolving conversation, and it's not just childcare, right? We're seeing the threat of cuts to Medicaid. The fact is, like, we have a lot of needs, and again, we still have this extremely regressive tax system where the wealthiest are not paying their fair share.
The eyes of the world are about to be on Seattle as the countdown to the World Cup begins.
So the question is, do both candidates have faith in the other to keep people here safe? So you think public safety would be at risk? Is that what I'm hearing?
It would be totally unsafe.
Also coming up, what we learned about Katie Wilson that caused this reaction. What?
Is this going to lose me the election?
And on the web, the people who voted for Katie Wilson, what were they trying to say about you? Mayor Harrell says that you've never led anything of substance. We asked both candidates to defend themselves against direct criticism from their opponent. That's only on our website, KIRO7.com/Seattle Mayor.
You can also scan the QR code on your screen. And we'll be right back.